and welcome back to Authentically Divine. I'm your host, Alyssa Davis, and here's another special for this week. So we've got health and wellness from last week that was all about fitness and my journey in the fitness industry and being involved in everything there. But the next portion here is all about health and wellness, but the topic of today is birth control. So this is a really big topic, very important to me because of everything that I've gone through with birth control. And I'm going to use this as an opportunity to speak about everything that I've gone through and just completely run through the story and then go through and pick out the details that I want to enforce the understanding that there could have been different pathways that I could have taken had I been informed. And then I'll go into some details because I came prepared. We have some studies about specific things related to birth control just to further emphasize the reason why I feel the way I feel about it now. But as we go through every single week, you know I will talk about a product that I love or a product that I simply just am using or enjoy at this moment in time, as it's a clean product, and that's basically the epitome of my life. I was out with friends the other day, we were sunbathing, and everyone was like, is that your organic sunscreen? Is that your, organic this, that? And the answer is always yes. If it's organic, I'm buying it organic. But I love actually being coined as that person because that's true to my heart. I have changed everything. I do not buy anything generic. And yes, I wait for everything to come in the mail, but I don't care. That's me. So we're going to dive right in. Speaking of organic, Toups Co Organics. I have their liquid foundation and their concealer for today's episode. And I wanted to just go over this brand is all online based, which is fine for me. Maybe not for you, but I would like to encourage you to start taking the steps to use clean makeup. It is a huge change for me. And yes, it does take some time to get used to because you're not plugging your face, you're not clogging your pores. You're using products like, for example, the Toups Co Organics concealer, the top ingredient is castor seed oil and then coconut oil. So rather than having a concealer that just dries on your eyes, I'm going to be 27 next month. When I look for a concealer, I'm looking for something that's going to hydrate too, because the eyes are getting some dryness under there, honey. And also, my little crow's feet, they need some extra moisture there. So I love using this Toups Co Organics concealer. It truly lasts longer than I've used clean makeup before, and nothing really lasted the way that this does. And to top that off, the Toups Co Organics liquid foundation. I'm grabbing the details here. So the top ingredient for the Toups Co liquid foundation is actually aloe vera juice. So again, the first ingredient, rather than being water, it's an oil or something that is lubricative. So my best friend ran the 5K with me, and I was like, what? That's so random. But I did it all on my own. I had headphones in. I really didn't prepare for this, at all. And honestly, because I use red light therapy, my knees being almost 27, your knees and your joints are not as, they're not just thriving anymore. They're in pain. I was in pain. I did use red light therapy on my knees a couple times, and it immediately took the pain away the next day. And honestly, I just love red light therapy. If anyone ever is talking about potentially getting it, I would definitely recommend, especially for when you are having inflammation and pain in the body, muscle soreness. It helps so much. But that's going to be something I feature in the future. I was running, and it was just amazing. When you are really walking with God, there are moments that just shine. You feel a good connection to him, but then there's these strong moments where there's no doubt in your mind that he's literally living inside of you. The Holy Spirit is living inside of you. And it's just confirmation. And that day was running the 5K, doing something extremely challenging, not only physically, but mentally so challenging because I had to keep telling myself to go. Just keep going. And yes, I did walk a little bit because I didn't prepare for it. So I ended at 41:11, and It's my personal best. I've never done one before, so there we go. I can only go up from there. But it made me like really enjoy running again. It gave me like a runner's high. I felt so good, but I almost got sick going over the finish line. It was a really hot day too, but it was so much fun. I got to just be myself, meet new people that work for the company that I work for. And then there was this moment where the sun was shining so beautifully. There was the most beautiful sunset I've seen this summer. And I took a picture with my best friend. I had one of her coworkers take it. And when I tell you, like, these moments that you know that God is there, like, he speaks through people. So we took a picture together. The sunset was in the back. And he literally said, so the coworker, he said, it looks like Jesus is coming back. He's like, I'm so glad you said you wanted to take a picture. It looks like Jesus is coming back. And I just feel like that is like a one-off. Like, that is such a random, extremely random thing to say to anyone. And I go, oh yeah, he is. He totally is. And it just is like, I love speaking about Jesus, and I love speaking about God in public now and with random people, or even just having conversations with my boyfriend about God, my mom. It's just, it like sparks this like eternal flame. It feels so good. So when he said something like that, or when he did say that, I was like, further confirmation. God was speaking to me through my run. God was playing music for me on my shuffle, and I was like, I get very emotional when I have signs from God or Jesus. I start to cry because I just get so overwhelmed with happiness and joy. It's like it just spills over. And I was running the 5K, and God is like throwing signs at me, and I was like, not right now, God, I gotta finish this. I was laughing. I was like, I love you. I gotta finish this run. But I don't know if anyone else has ever had that experience before, but like doing physical activity and like being outdoors especially, I feel so connected to God. It just feels so good. Like, I never want it to end. I'll be sitting in nature and I find signs everywhere, and it's like that might be just for me, but it feels so good. And then afterwards, so that was a first. It was so hard. It was so fun. I would do it again. It was a very random thing. It felt amazing. But then I go into so my boyfriend and I celebrated our 1 year together, and that's God's will. He brought us together. Took me to the place that we met for dinner, because it was like a rooftop bar restaurant. We were at the rooftop bar when we met. He took me to the restaurant for dinner because it's also a hotel. And it was the most romantic evening, like all God-given conversations. It was just amazing, and I'm so happy and just in love, and it was just awesome. So we celebrated. We love doing experiences together. So we went to actually it's called a Sky High Adventure Park, where you are up in the trees connected to a harness in the woods. Kind of sounds scary, which it really was. Thank God I had Trevor with me, because it's actually crazy. You are like literally in the treetops, and you're like climbing on ropes, and you're zip lining, and there's no one helping you. It's just you. So me being like a little bit of a ditz and like a blonde, I had to like keep speaking out loud and having him confirm like what clips I attach to what so that I don't fall. But when I say it is crazy that we did that, like at one point in time, I was so shot. Like, my nerves were so shot from like being up in the trees and like having to do all these things to make sure I don't fall out of the harness, and like being my own protector. It was crazy. Like, I'm going to prefer to stay on the land going forward. Dip my toes in the sand and the beach. That's about it. I don't want to be climbing no trees anymore. But it was a great experience. It was with my boyfriend, and he was leading me and cheering me on. And you can come up. We have another guest. Hi. We have a guest today, guys. Hi. She's 14, is apparently. We got her about 12 years ago. They said she's a rescue. They said she was 2 when we got her. Oh, this is the spot. We're going to take her to the vet because she has a little sore on her arm. But she's my baby. This is Beanie, if you didn't see her in the other episode. It's funny, though. She doesn't really ever jump on the couch anymore. But she did the last couple of times that I've tried to record. So this is great. She might be my emotional support dog for this. But yeah, this is Beanie. And it was just so much fun. Like, those were a lot of firsts. And it's great. Being involved and doing things for the first time and knowing that you have God protecting you and being there for you, it allows you to fully feel like you are unstoppable. Like, I'm not out here doing reckless stuff. Yes, I was climbing trees and ziplining in them, but I was also harnessed. It was very protective. Trevor would never let anything happen to me. But I wanted to really dive in now that I did the weekly recap. If you like the weekly recaps, please comment or send me a review or message me and say whether or not you prefer it. If you don't, that's completely okay. Just be kind about it. But as the world always needs more kindness. But of course, this is going to be my podcast. This is my episode. So I would like to incorporate a little bit about myself and things that make me happy. Not only the topics of things that I've learned and the things that I'm doing now that I've learned the lessons, but just life in general. So you can see where I'm at. Get to know me. So birth control. Now that we're on that topic, I first wanted to talk about birth control like 2 years ago or authentically.divine on my Instagram used to be my fitness account. And that's where I had some of my followers from, which was really cool. I started it off with that. And then I had talked about getting off of birth control, and a couple of my friends and people that know me personally had followed that account. And I was going to do a deep dive into it. But I just kind of went along with life because I was struggling with getting off of birth control. So that kind of took up my time. But so this has been a topic I've been wanting to do for a couple of years now. I was put on birth control back in my freshman year of high school. I grew up with horrible cramps, horrible acne, horrible just general overall stomach feelings. Like, I struggled with my immune system because of my IBS, and it flowed right into my period. I was struggling at all times. I vividly remember back in middle school, I had been picked up from school because I had my period. Like, I was sweating. My body was like fighting me, and I was suffering. And that's how it was for me for a really long time. And every time I had my cycle, I was in so much pain. I was miserable. It just further made my IBS be a problem. And it all, truly looking back, like, I was eating awful foods, I was stressed out, and I had no knowledge of what my period was. So in middle school, transitioning now, I have my cycle, I'm in freshman year, I did start to get into things like I had an older boyfriend, we had sex, I was told by the gynecologist, which if you're not sure of what a gynecologist is, if you're a man as well, you should be aware of what that is for if you have a woman with you in your life. It's the girl doctor. So the gynecologist was like, well, if you're having sex, what form of birth control are you using? They will shame you fully if you just say you're using condoms. They'll be like, well, you can still get pregnant. All in all, what happens is they push the pill on you. Me not knowing anything about my cycle, my family didn't know anything about it. They put me on birth control pills. And birth control pills, they were like, oh, here, take this. And I have heart problems in my family, so they gave me a birth control pill. And they were like, this is the least harmful one. With your heart problems in your family, this is the least harmful pill that you can have. Crazy to think about. So I was put on birth control. I really don't remember if I had like side effects because I was like already having torturous stomach aches like left and right. I was dealing with stress and puberty. Number one, puberty. That's why everything is struggling right now in ninth grade. They start switching around my birth control. So if you are on the generic, they'll still switch it to something else. Like they were giving me generic when I was on name brand, and it's a pill. It's a medication that they put me on in freshman year of high school. That's crazy. A freshman in high school being put on medication so she doesn't get pregnant is crazy. It's crazy. And there's women that are getting put on it even earlier than that. So you're literally being put on a medication. Okay? A medication. So at this point in time, I was on birth control. They were switching me around. And when you are on a medication, like let's say it's a name brand and they switch you to generic, it's a different formula. It's not made in the same factory always. So I was like all over the place. I mean, first of all, they tell you it takes a couple of months to get used to the birth control. So they're like, oh, let's do trial and error. At one point, I remember I was on the IUD after a couple of years of being on the pill, because I was getting annoyed. Like I was like, I don't want to take the pill anymore. Like as a teenager, you have so much going on, and then you have to take birth control. That's why everyone had their 8 o'clock alarms on in high school, because everyone needed to be reminded that they need to take their birth control pill. I don't know about you guys, but if you're a woman listening to this, everyone in high school had an 8 p.m. sharp birth control pill time. At least of my friends, which is really funny. After that, being on the birth control pill, engaging in activities and not using condoms and just being not safe and just relying on the birth control pill, thank God I did not get pregnant any of those times, which is actually crazy. Like I repent for sinning in the way that I had done prior to this point in my life. Birth control isn't like a fail-safe. You can still get pregnant on birth control. Lots of people do. So I just should not have been engaging in that if I didn't want a child, because that's literally what the act of sex is to produce children. The faith aspect, God specifies that sex before marriage is not appropriate and it is a sin. So back in the days when I didn't know my body, I didn't know anything was going on. They don't teach you in school. My mom didn't know. I have these horrible reactions of cramps and nausea and being sick at school and having acne everywhere, which is also a part of puberty for half of that. The other part is my stomach issues and unhealed, stress and trauma and things like that were happening inside of my body. I was on the birth control pill, and I was on it, I think I switched over to the IUD, and I remember I was waitressing. So this is all through college. Up to college, I'm on the birth control pill. And up to college, I put myself on the IUD because they were like, well, your other option would be just to, if you don't want to take the pill, then you're going to have to do this. So, they don't give you options. They don't choose to educate you. You are a number and a prescription so that the doctors can get fulfilled with their monthly quotas so that they can get paid more, just so you're aware. That is a thing. And that's why birth control is being pushed like candy. That's why all medication is pushed like candy. There's a quota. So Western medicine is not my favorite, and you can hear it in my voice. I don't like that they do that. Rather than educating someone, they are willing to put you on a medication to completely destroy your gut, completely destroy, just take away your freedom of choice, your freedom of understanding, your freedom of your own body, first of all. Being on the IUD, I literally, during one of my waitressing shifts, I was trying to talk to someone, and it jutted this awful pain, and I was in the middle of a conversation. I was speaking, and I doubled over, and I almost passed out. Okay, so yeah, this is where I started to listen to my body. I got that removed. I was like, this is not normal. I didn't immediately get it removed. I had a couple more times of being shown that that's what happens, like with that in my body. I almost passed out at the gym. I was nauseous, like getting those or like those jolting pains. And knowing that I've never dealt with that before, to then, now that I have the ID, it made sense. I was starting to listen to my body and understand things. At one point in time, I did take a break from birth control, but I did go back on it. And it was because I just wanted some time to myself, see what could happen. And I don't think I gave myself even enough time to detox. It was only like a couple of months, and then I went back on it. And this time around, I did the Nuvaring. So if you're asking if I've been on all different kinds, it was 2012 to 2022. So 10 years worth of birth control, or 3 different kinds of variations of birth control. So it seems like every time I go to record, I have something additionally that I have to do. So most of the times I do like a half-hour increment, and then I come back and do the rest. It's just crazy. So I didn't really start to understand that there was a problem with it until, obviously I was going through some hormone issues and things like that, but it just didn't really click that this would be something that was a problem. I mean, when I got on the birth control, yes, I still had like cramps. I still had acne. I would actually get this really bad acne on my face that would come around my cycle. And just honestly, it was just putting myself through all of this and having to pay for it. And I went with the Nuvaring and putting like a plastic ring inside of you. It's like when you realize, oh my gosh, this is when I started to follow the fitness trends and the health trends. And I started to really dive into all about birth control. And I learned so much about it because there's just not a lot of information from the people that you talk to. Like, teachers didn't go through the points that there's 4 weeks or 4 different weeks of your cycle. There's 4 different phases each month, how you can only get pregnant in certain times of the month. Like, I'll go into detail about that next. But in November 2022, I had, now realizing it was God in my head speaking to me, but I thought it was me at the time, but in my head I heard, if you are to meet the love of your life as you want to, you will need to be off of birth control. I knew immediately that I would get off of it. I just went cold. I mean, okay, I didn't go cold turkey. I was trying to detox with, they say to get off of birth control, you should supplement with like milk thistle to help with your liver detoxification and all of these things. And I'll go into detail. But milk thistle is a really great herb supplement that you can take that helps to alleviate all of the toxic load. Because what happens when you're on birth control is it puts essentially, like, let's say there's a hole in the side of the boat and you're drowning. You slap some tape on there and it stops from the boat drowning. All it did wasn't heal or fix or cure the boat. It just put a Bandaid on it. So at any time when you're stopped taking birth control, it erupts. You start to drown. And I think that's the best way that I could describe that in that way. Because what happens is birth control is a Band-Aid for every ailment that you were dealing with prior to being on birth control. So for me, I dealt with back acne. I dealt with horrible cramps. I dealt with, all of the things. So I can really talk about how it felt when I was getting off of birth control, because it truly, like, your body does, it's an overload of toxins from birth control because it's just completely stopping you from being able to ovulate and to have a real period when you're on birth control. This is something that I have a feeling that a lot of women just don't even know. In this case, when you are on birth control, you have a period. Let's say for a generic birth control pill pack, there's 3 weeks of blue pills, 1 week of white pills. The white pills are supposed to represent when you get your period. I did the air quotes in the wrong spot, but when you're supposed to have your period. The first 3 weeks, you're taking a medicated pill, and the last week you are taking a placebo pill, which technically they told you didn't have to take, but you still take it just to keep up with the habit. What that week actually is a withdrawal bleed. a withdrawal bleed from the medication that you're taking. So it is not a real period, because a real period would mean that you're ovulating and your hormones are ready to make a baby and your body is craving it. On birth control, your body and your hormones are flatlined, which is why a lot of women are depressed. They have no libido, and libido meaning desire to have sex, to mate, to do all of the things. You have no normal functionality when you're thinking about the function of a woman's body. A woman's body in the month goes up and down, and that's normal. We have a 4-week cycle. Most women are on a 28-day cycle, so that means that in the 28 days of the month, they are going through each of the 4 phases. So the 4 phases include menstruation, which lasts like 4 to 6 days. Average is 5 days for a period. And then you move into, after that, the follicular phase. It's a little bit shorter because what your body is doing is getting ready to ovulate and go into the ovulatory phase. The ovulatory phase is another short window, and I'll go into the details too. But this is just the basics, because I am not like a doctor, but as a woman, we should all know these things about our body. So, menstruation, follicular phase, ovulation. And then after ovulation comes the luteal phase. The luteal phase for a lot of women, and this is something I learned because I got off of birth control, it's called the inner autumn, because what it is you are getting ready to go into hibernation mode, and your period and the menstruation phase is your hibernation mode, because that's when you're supposed to rest. But when you're on birth control, you don't have those 4 phases. Have none of them, because your body, when you ovulate, that's when you have the phases. Birth control stops ovulation for the most part. It basically does. I mean, I can't say for certain because you can still get pregnant on birth control, but it truly does stop your natural processes of going through those 4 phases. And that, I found this out within myself. That is why I didn't learn this from anyone else. I learned this through going through this. That is why you are flatlined while you're on birth control, and that's why just life, like a lot of women just feel numb, they feel bored, they feel nothing. They start to feel nothing. It's because those 4 phases that we have each month is what makes us feel alive. We as women are not supposed to be the same every single day. Okay? So if you are thinking about getting off of birth control, I want to encourage you. Yes, I'll go into some details about what I dealt with while getting off of it. But the true and most amazing part about being off of birth control is being able to know your body and get to know yourself as a woman intimately. And for me, I never got the chance to do that. I was ripped of that by doctors that just told me to put a Bandaid on my hormones because they were rampant, instead of diving in and looking at the reason why. And that's why naturopath and homeopathic doctors, I look to them a little bit more so. I mean, a lot more so in my life I have, because they tend to get down to the root and can see the issues and take the tests to get there, not just, oh, if you have this, that, and the other, take this pill, take that pill, combine the 2. You have heart problems? Who cares? Just take it. You're fine. No. I love to get to the root of things. So when I was starting my health journey, I knew that I could not be on birth control anymore. And it made sense. It's like that click when I stopped drinking. It made sense for the lifestyle I was leading. I should not be on these things. I lead a healthy lifestyle. Why am I on this? So birth control was a big one for me. And I know that it's not something that a lot of people talk about when you're with your friends and stuff. Like I surround myself with women that are all on birth control. My one good friend just got off of it, and she she used to suffer too. And now we both don't suffer because we've taken good care of our bodies since high school. And our hormones are just completely fine because we have taken care of ourselves. But I do want to say that it takes about 3 months for your body to adjust. So let's just say in January, let's say I'm eating horrible food, I'm sad, I'm depressed, I'm lonely, like whatever, however you're feeling. Those feelings and eating crappy food and feeling awful, 3 months from then, it will reflect in your menstrual cycle. And the reason I know that is because when you take a supplement like it's supposed to help with your cycle, it typically takes 3 months for it to go into effect. It's the same way that they mention about birth control. It takes about 3 months if you're getting onto it to start to get used to it. So it's the magic rule of thumb is 3 months. That's why it's a great thing to consistently take care of your body, because your body responds to things 3 months after. As a woman, I can't speak for men, but I can speak for women. So I got off of birth control. Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's just talk about toxic overload. Definitely, the first thing that I recognized when getting off of birth control was actually, just came to mind, I remembered, my sense of smell. My sense of smell came back like I was like a hunting dog. I could sniff, like I'd be at the bar, not drinking, like we'd be at like a show or something and someone had some tequila near me, not even near me, like 2 feet away, and I could smell it. Now, like it actually, I truly believe this based off of some studies, but it literally, my sense of smell came back tenfold. I can smell everything. And I feel like that's actually kind of crazy to say because I don't know if anyone else had that experience, but if you did, that's amazing, because I feel like that could also be why you flatline when you're on birth control. Your sense of smell changes. It's like food and sensations, and the sense of smell is a sensation. That is literally like a way to like recognize the external world and interpret the world. So as you are on birth control, at least for me, it definitely nulled my sense of smell. And I'm not talking COVID null. Like I got off of birth control and I could smell everything. Like it just, like as if I was smelling things for like the first time. And if I'm like near a strong smell, I am the only one that can smell it half the time. Like my sister has pointed out to me that I sound crazy, but I can smell like everything, and she knows. So it's just crazy. But that was one observation that I've had about my own experience. And if you have yourself also experienced that, that would be actually crazy. If you message me or DM'd me something like that on my Authentically Divine Instagram or YouTube, and I would just love to hear if that was an experience that you had as well, because it makes sense. So the reason why I pointed that out, and I brought a little bit of stuff to, study with and take a look, but there's a thing, and it's controversial to even talk about, but I love controversy, and especially something that supports something that I have experienced personally. There was if you've never heard of it, it's the sweaty t-shirt study method. So it's called Wedekind's study. It's often known as the sweaty t-shirt study. The researcher Wedekind assembled volunteers, 49 women and 44 men, selected for the variety of MHC gene types. So what this study actually entailed is the women were asked to record whether or not they were taking oral contraceptives, as this would affect the results because it affects the level of hormones. So the men were given a clean cotton t-shirt and were asked to keep it in an open plastic bag when not wearing it. They wore the same t-shirt for 2 nights when they were sleeping. They were also asked to just abstain from spicy foods and other activities that may affect the smell of the t-shirt. So like smoking, sleeping with someone else. So what that was is they were given also odor-free deodorant so that it literally picked up a man wearing a t-shirt 2 days in a row at night when he's sleeping, no perfume, no cologne, no other pheromones being reached onto that. spicy foods and things they secrete. They secrete off of your body. So that is essentially why they were doing that. If you had questions about that, after the fact, women were asked to come and smell them. So these men are wearing the t-shirts, then they hang them up, and women are asked to go and smell the t-shirts. And they were supposed to rate the t-shirt on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of its intensity, pleasantness, because if you don't know pheromones, every person gives off a specific scent. And if you are in love and you can, I mean, it sounds silly to say this, but if you, everyone has their own, smell, their skin. There's TikToks that are I just love to, snuggle up on my husband and just smell him, and people say that they love their sweaty armpit husbands. So there you go. It's proof is in the pudding. Look those up if you're interested in hearing about them. Overall, this is the important part. The women who were not on the pill preferred the smells or the scents of the t-shirts worn by men whose genes were different from their own. Mic drop. Different from their own. And then if you were on birth control, this study suggests that you would pick a mate based off of pheromones to someone that has similar genes to you. Now, if you don't know anything about procreation, you should actually, ideally, be partnering with someone that has different genes than you so that you do not go through natural selection. Because the stronger your genes are by having a combination of the two types of genes, or, obviously there's way more genes, but let's say a man and a woman, and if they have similar genes and they are procreating, they really don't have enough diversity to continue as strongly as it would be a man and a woman with two opposite genes and they were procreating. You have a better chance of survival because you have a mix of the genes. So I thought that was so interesting, especially knowing that my sense of smell had changed and I could smell things that I've never smelled before, and God coming through and saying, if you want to meet your person, you're going to have to be off of birth control. It just totally made sense because you don't have the capacity to smell your partner as well as if you were off of birth control. And look, if you don't believe me, look up online. There's also a lot of people that talk about there are women that get off of birth control to have the child that their husband, they're working towards having. They will actually end up in divorce because, first of all, your pheromones, we are primal mates. Okay? We are in that way. That is what we do. We are like animals in that sense, where we smell and we attract and we mate based off of pheromones. So birth control, in a sense, literally stops your biological processes from working properly. Your mate selection. That's where I'd be like, government, I know you knew that, but thanks. That's why I got off of it. I just thought that was really interesting, especially because in my own experience, I was struggling hormonally and I reached out to a homeopathic doctor and we went through all the steps. A lot of women will end up with PCOS or polycystic ovarian syndrome or an estrogen overload, which was what I was dealing with. My body was not detoxing estrogen very well, so I was taking supplements to help with that. That's what was happening, was I had a toxic overload and I was not able to detox properly because of having been on birth control for 10 years. And it does a lot of damage. For example, I am still detoxing. I got off of it in November 2022, and there are things that I'm not perfect on when it comes to the epitome of health for my menstrual cycle and for being off of birth control, and that I'm still working towards, especially acne. But when I tell you even still a night and day difference from before to now. I have a natural cycle. My periods are barely there. This will help to encourage you to go into doing the research for yourself, because you are your own advocate. I was talking to someone recently, and they had said that their gynecologist was like, they were afraid to tell the gynecologist that they made changes to their life because of the pressure that the gynecologist puts on them. And that in itself is such a scary thing that any woman has to deal with, especially you're in a room with them. They are the educated ones. Well, guess what? You are allowed to know as much about your body as they do, because it's your own body. I encourage you to trust that you have the knowledge. If something feels wrong, listen to yourself about that. Your intuition and your body starts to feel tense and you're firing up, like you feel the heat inside of you, or if you start to just you're tuning them out because you don't want to listen, you know what's wrong. Listen to yourself. Don't just say yes to the dress because somebody else is telling you that that's the direction you have to go. And you are allowed to question everything. Question the system. Question why they want to put you on birth control instead of exploring your options. Because guess what? You have the chance to be your own advocate. And I empower you to stand behind your choices, even if you're standing alone. That is strength. Since I'm sharing what I have done and used in my own life, and I'm only speaking for myself, but I want to encourage you to go and find the answers for yourself as well. This book, Hormone Intelligence by Aviva Ram, and yes, she's a medical doctor, but she's also amazing. This entire book, it says The Complete Guide to Calming Hormone... I look so silly the way I'm holding this, but... Calming hormones, chaos, and restoring your body's natural blueprint for well-being. So truly, she goes into all of these details. This book, I've even sent pictures to other women. I'm like, you need to see this. This is a great book to go into the details about your body if you really have no idea. Phase 1 is menstruation. So it's periods, day 1 to 7. So that's when you are menstruating, of course, as a woman. And then they talk about, she goes into how much period pain is normal, how much is this, that. Phase 2 is the follicular phase. And what happens there is estrogen is dominant during that phase and testosterone starts to rise, making us feel energized, more bold, more vibrant, more mentally clear. So that's after your period. And obviously we know typically that is how it feels when you're getting in out of the phase of the menstruation where you're more relaxed and you don't have as much energy. But for people like me, I actually do have a lot of energy. Maybe not the first couple of days on my period, but it's this feeling I am so excited for what's next. And that's because the follicular phase is typically considered your inner spring, because you're getting prepared for summer, which is the ovulatory phase. And that lasts, typically, they say it lasts about 4 days. So it's really not a long time, but that's when you, as a woman, are your face actually is more symmetrical, which is crazy. Look that up too. But your face is more symmetrical when you're in an ovulatory phase. You're more likely to socialize. You're more likely to go out. You're more likely to make plans. You're more likely to be talkative. All of the things. And that makes sense because in summer, you're alive. Okay? The ice is melted. You're ready to go. You're ready to stay up late because there's long hours. The sun sets late at night. You know what I mean? So that is your ovulatory phase. And this is when your body is preparing itself for you to become pregnant. So one magical thing about your body is it naturally knows what day of the cycle it is. So if you look up and you read and understand your body, this is the phase where you are wanting to make babies, okay? You have to repress that if you're a woman that is not looking to make a baby anytime soon. And if you are actively having sex and you are not on birth control, this is where you are recommended to not have sex. But that's when your body wants it most, okay? So that was kind of a crazy thing when I first started to get off of birth control after having been flatlined for most of my life, and to now being whoa, what's going on here? After ovulation is your next aspect of what's called the luteal phase. So that is the longest phase of the month. And this is where it is around 14 days. From 9 to 13 days is normal. This is where, especially in the beginning, at least for me, for the luteal phase, they call this your inner autumn. So this is where it's right before winter, which winter is your period or your menstrual phase, and your inner autumn. And this is me. I'm going to laugh because you are my friend. I will always have SpongeBob references. Like my brain, there's a file back there that is just SpongeBob references. So what I refer to the luteal phases, especially in the beginning when you're like, this is what I call, like, remember when Sandy Cheeks took SpongeBob and they were preparing for winter and for her hibernation, where she was like eating all of this, like doing all the things, cleaning, running around. That is literally what's happening in your body as a woman. You're preparing for winter, where you are setting everything up so that you don't have to do the work when you are on your period, which is winter. I'm going to keep saying that they are the same. Winter equals period. But as you're hibernating, bears and, Sandy Cheeks, she's eating so much. And that's what I do on my luteal phase. Like, I need carbs because your energy starts to deplete, because your body is literally slowing you down to rest. It's just so cool. And when you really are like immersed in it, yes, it's a lot to understand, especially because us as women are just depleted from that knowledge. No one tells us, but yet it's freely available to us. This book, truly, Hormone Intelligence, this is something I would recommend reading for sure. Obviously, you can even look it up on Instagram. You can look it up on Google. Just be like the 4 phases of the menstrual cycle. Get to know the parts of yourself if you are off of birth control. Or if you're looking to get off of birth control, like I promise you, it's so cool to go through these phases. And it sounds so silly, like who's going to think that it sounds so cool to like go through your monthly cycle, but it is, because you can adhere to yourself more. You literally know today, like, hey, like I just didn't feel like working out today. I needed extra carbs. I didn't want to deplete myself. I just needed to keep eating food and like getting that nourishment. And it paid off. I literally had energy to come in and do this podcast, do this episode. But it is like, it's this like magic of knowing your body, because it further connects you to yourself. That's the best part about it. It's like, that's why I get excited about it. Because for me, I had no idea that this type of magic existed in my own self. Like, you get to know about little pieces of yourself, like during the luteal phase, if I read late at night, it's really tough for me to get off the couch. But if I was doing that, I wouldn't be reading in my ovulatory phase as much. I'd be going and exploring and jumping and going to the gym and running around, recording 5 episodes in a week. Like, it's crazy. But that's where also you can like schedule things around when you're feeling sociable. And I'm not saying to use that as like when you are in your ovulatory phase, that's the only time you're hanging out with friends. Or when you're in your luteal phase, you avoid everyone. Like, you don't want to set these like precedents, but you're able to, when you know yourself and you've gone through the cycles the way that I have over the last 2 years, you can register the way that you feel and be like, oh, that makes sense. I'm starting to become tired more. I need a couple extra hours of sleep, or I need a little bit of a caffeine boost if I'm going to make it through the day during my luteal phase. But truly, it's just such a cool thing, especially as a woman, because men don't have that. Men go through their cycles daily. We as women are like this for a whole month. Men are just going through it. Like, their body changes. That's why, there's so much I can say, but just like the regular work day is actually adhering to men's biological functionalities rather than women's, because we are not the same version of ourselves 4 weeks of the month. As a woman, you naturally go through these different phases, and that's what allows procreation. Like God made us this way for a reason. And God made us so unique, and that's why birth control truly is like an attack. It's a spiritual attack, in my opinion, too, because of the fact that it takes away from your innate knowledge and joy that you have from going through all of these changes. And I hope you can like hear it in my voice that the excitement that I have about this is because of the changes I've made. And truly, though, if you are looking for resources on who to follow, or on Instagram, like specific people, I'll do a birth control reel so that I can provide some information and direction on where you can find it, because that's where I went and found it. But I definitely recommend the book. And I just truly think that birth control is a good example because so many women are on it. But if you were thinking about just getting off of medication and finding natural alternatives, or just do the research yourself. The world is truly at our fingertips. And yeah, don't believe everything that you see. But if you feel like, I keep going back, and I will always go back to, your intuition is what is right for you. It may not look the same for someone else, but if you truly dial in and listen to your intuition, whether you feel safe in your body in this situation, whether you feel that that's normal, or whether you want to spend the money on it, it's like if something feels wrong, even in the slightest, I truly just encourage you to go in the opposite direction, because it's your life, it's your body. I wish that I had the resources that I have now back in 2012 when I went on birth control. And I hope that if I'm able to get this message out to people, maybe they can establish a good understanding and make an educated decision on whether or not they want to go on birth control. In my opinion, I think that everyone should be able to be educated on both sides before having to make a huge decision like that, especially when it comes to your health. Because we don't want to slap Band-Aids on things that are curable before they are not. And, God wanted me to provide this message too. It's the fact that birth control has been pushed onto us so much. And there are some studies that I did go into details on that I wanted to bring up. There was a birth control study. It's actually by the CDC. It said, so one of the things was the probability of having had sex by age 17 was highest for black males at 57%, followed by Hispanics for 56% and white males by 44%. Among females, the probability of having sex by age 17 was highest for black females, 58%, followed by white females, 51%, and Hispanic females, 47%. Among never married teenagers ages 15 to 19, in 2015 to 2019, 57.9% of those actively having sex between the ages of 15 and 19 would be very upset if they became pregnant. 57%, over half of the people in ages 15 to 19 in a 2015 to 2019 study. So over half of the people engaging in having sex and doing the act of procreation would be very upset that a child would be made from procreation. So this is where God is coming through, and he wants me to speak on this. The act of sex is to have a child, to procreate. And I'm going to leave it at that. And I'm going to say it because I was 15 before. Like, I can say that. I'm not yelling at you if you are 15 to 19, but the act of sex is to procreate. I don't mean to leave that on a heavy note, but I want that to be a point. Because I didn't realize that. That didn't hone into the way that I feel about things until recently. My walk with God has given me new eyes to see, new ears to listen, new everything. And if I could reach one person, that's what matters. If you are looking to make a change, get off of birth control, or if you're considering birth control, you should have the capacity to weigh your options. But I did want to thank everyone for being a valued listener. This is your host, Alyssa. Thank you for listening to Authentically Divine, and I hope everyone has a great week ahead. Thank you.